Okay, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a comparison. We've got the JBL Boombox 4 on the right and the JBL PartyBox Club 120 on the left. Kind of hard to get these both in frame, but hopefully I've done an okay job here. This might not be a direct comparison that you're likely to make. Obviously, they are different, a different range of speakers and intended for slightly different purposes. But I figured that while I've got them both here, it would be silly not to do this. You might not be considering like actually deciding between these two to purchase, but you might still be interested in how they compare. So we'll go through some of the specs, we'll go through the price difference, probably not so much the design differences because that's pretty obvious. And then we'll listen to them both side by side because I think that will be quite interesting. And then I'll kind of speak about the differences between them and in what use case you might prefer one or the other. So if we start with the Club 120, it actually retails for about £300 at the moment, which is impressive because the Boombox 4 on the right is £450, so it's £150 more. Obviously, what you're paying for there is the extra convenience in portability and the build quality and some of the other features that we'll speak about later. So it's not just, it might initially seem a bit stupid because it's quite clearly a smaller speaker, probably got less power just due to its size. But yeah, there's a lot that kind of comes into that price, obviously. So if we're talking straight specs, we've got 160 watt of output on the 120. On the Boombox 4, we have about 200 watt of output all combined because we've got 260 watt woofers and 240 watt tweeters. So technically slightly more output on the Boombox 4, but yeah, it kind of depends how it's used, if you see what I mean. Frequency range, we've got 40 Hz to 20 kilohertz on the 120, and we've got 37 Hz to 20 kilohertz on the Boombox 4. So also technically the Boombox 4 can go a bit deeper, that 3 extra hertz or lower on the bass end than the 120 can. They both benefit from the JBL AI sound boost, so they'll kind of change their EQ and their sound profile depending on the room they're in. Obviously weight is going to be different. The 120 is 11 kilos and the Boombox 4 is just under 6 at 5.89. So obviously there's going to be a weight difference here. Obviously that's the biggest difference between the two, is just portability in itself. Battery life is also very different. So you get about 12 hours of playtime out of the 120 and you get 34 hours or 28 hours if you don't use playtime boost on the Boombox 4. So it's like quite easily over double the battery life for the Boombox 4. And then charging time, they're actually very similar. It's 3.5 hours to charge the 120 and 3 hours to charge the Boombox 4. So yeah, surprisingly similar. Another big difference we've got is the durability of these, so like the water and dust resistance. The Club 120 is IPX4, so we've got no dust resistance and we've got a 4 for water resistance, which is not very good. It does mean that like if you're at the beach and stuff like that, it's not going to be very good. It's basically not guaranteed to survive much torture. And then kind of similar on the water level, it can take a splash or two, but it's not going to want to be submerged. You're going to want to avoid spilling stuff on it. I imagine the top panel is probably okay, but if you're spilling stuff through the grill and stuff at the front or into the flaps at the back, not going to be very good. One thing they do have in common is they both have Auracast, as they are the new gen of JBL lineup. So you can actually pair these. You just click the Auracast button on the top of both of them. Really, really easy. You don't even need to get involved with the app. Click the button on both, give them a couple seconds, and they will pair and sync together. So that's a nice option to have. Obviously, if you had an older generation, you wouldn't be able to do that quite as easily or at all with these new ones. And then obviously the drivers, I probably should have started with that, but you've got, in the 120, you've got two 5.25 inch woofers. You can see the kind of lights go around those in the middle. You've got one on top of the other. So yeah, 5-inch woofers, obviously very big. And then you've got two 2.25 inch tweeters. The Boombox 4 has two 5-inch woofers as well, so only slightly smaller than the 120. And it has two 20mm tweeters. I think that is about 0.75 inches. So yeah, they're considerably smaller than the tweeters in the 120. Tweeters in the 120 are these kind of blobs up here, top left and right. So the woofers are actually surprisingly almost the same size in the Boombox 4, but the tweeters are smaller. But then obviously the Boombox 4 also has 3 passive radiators, so it's got 2 circle ones on either end, and it's got a racetrack shaped one inside. So yeah, slight difference in drivers, but yeah, quite impressive for the woofers on the Boombox 4 that they've managed to fit 2 of those 5-inch ones in there. They both have removable, like replaceable batteries. The PartyBox one is removable so that you can remove it and put another one in and keep playing, whereas the Boombox one is just replaceable so that if it dies, like long term after 5 years, you could replace it for a new one, but it's not removable in the same way that the Club 120 is. So that is a slight difference. So you could effectively, if you bought 2 or 3 extra 120 batteries, you could basically play the 120 indefinitely, because you could just swap the batteries out. It takes a couple seconds just clipping them out the back. So that is a difference. The Boombox 4 supports lossless USB-C playback through the port at the back, whereas the PartyBox does not. They've both got 2 bass boost settings, the exact same options. They've got level 1, which is deep, and level 2, which is punchy. They do kind of different things. Most people tend to prefer the first level, which is deep, because it just kind of amplifies the bass in the songs, whereas the punchy level tends to add quite an artificial level of punchiness in there, which isn't for everyone and does sometimes ruin songs a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's the specs of it. Obviously they are different speakers, but a lot of the stuff in there is probably more similar than you'd expect. So yeah, we'll move swiftly onto the sound test. I'll kind of take each out of the shot. We'll have the iPad set up with the decibel thing, so we can give that a test, and then we will talk about the sound afterwards. Okay, so yeah, sound comparison over. That's interesting, actually. I was kind of holding the iPad in a different place next to the PartyBox there for a minute, because the decibel reading on the iPad reads 91 max for the PartyBox, which I find really hard to believe. I think that might be more due to the placement of the iPad itself. We can obviously look at the frequency chart. I wouldn't trust the decibel reading for that. That seems to have gone wrong somehow, but sound-wise, they're actually surprisingly close, like more than you'd expect, I think. The PartyBox definitely sounds like the mid-ranges are clearer and more balanced. due to the size of those tweeters, I imagine, in that they're almost, well, they're 1.5 inches bigger than the ones in the boombox, so they're just able to reproduce sounds a bit easier, and especially the mid-range sounds, because they're a bit bigger. The tweeters in the boombox are just too small. They're quite good at the high end, but I think they're going to struggle in the mid-range. And you can tell when you swap, hopefully in that sound test it comes out on camera as well, but even if I'm just kind of sat in a room and swapping between the two, as I do when I'm testing, you can hear that the boombox sounds a little bit like it's almost behind another wall compared to the PartyBox. It sounds a bit more muffled because that mid-range is being produced by the woofers effectively, rather than a tweeter or a proper mid-range driver like it should be. So you can tell the boombox sounds a little bit less like, you know, a proper speaker in a way. It's a bit more kind of outdoors, just blasting sound. It's not bad, but when you do play them next to each other, you can tell the PartyBox is nicer to listen to. You can hear more of the vocals and the mid-range in general. There are kind of some parts missing in the boombox. Having said that, the bass on the boombox actually feels and seems to be stronger than that of the PartyBox, which really just doesn't make much sense. I mean, I guess the woofers are just as big, and it's got passive radiators, 3 of which, and you know, if you put it on the right surface, the boombox can create such powerful bass, especially for its size. You put the PartyBox up against a wall because the sub escape is at the back, it's a bit more powerful. But if you're kind of sat both in the middle of the room, I guess just due to the way they're set up, the boombox sounds bassier, even if it's technically not. And that does give them a quite a different sound, actually. So it kind of depends what you're after, I suppose, and what music you're listening to. If you're listening to more kind of like jazz, you know, proper kind of like even pop stuff, you would probably prefer the sound of the PartyBox because you get a stronger mid-range and it will be better on the vocals. If you're listening to kind of proper party music, really bass heavy stuff, and you don't care too much about the rest of it, like basically like the song we've just been listening to, probably doesn't show off that effect very well because that is more of kind of like a disco-y song. In that case, the boombox is kind of better because it's a bit louder and it produces the bass stronger and would probably sound better outdoors in a party environment for that reason. It obviously is worth bearing in mind that the PartyBox is currently £150 cheaper than the boombox, which is kind of insane. So obviously if the price is a big point for you, then you're probably going to go straight for the PartyBox, but some of you might not have the physical space to have the PartyBox, and you might just not want something that big. In that case, like, you know, don't be put off. The boombox is almost the same level of speaker the PartyBox is. It just shines in different areas. So yeah, that was that. Let me know what you think. Which one would you pick up? Pop it down in the comments.